This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. This is episode 111. I'm one of your hosts, Rae Rae.
And I'm your other host, Breezy.
And this is one of the other super exciting guests we have been teasing that we had coming up for you all. We talked to Kathryn Dobbs. She is the Senior Vice President, Chief Marketing Officer for the Columbus Blue Jackets. She's also a Blue Jackets fan, started out as a fan before she even got into her current job. She shares that whole story. We talk about it all the things that are important to us fans, whether or not you're a Blue Jackets fan, you're going to love this interview because we talk about so many of the important aspects that us as fans care about. And to hear it from somebody in the chief marketing officer position of an NHL team is super reassuring. But you're also going to learn about the Blue Jackets and the fifth line and the pride that Kathryn has and the pride that the fans and the team have in that market. So, and some funny stories with players.
Yes, definitely funny stories with players for sure. So wait for that. That'll be coming up shortly.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get started, this is a no cry zone today.
Please, I can't.
No cry zone today.
I can't.
For both of us. For both of us. You for Mr. Ben, me for the good old Dustin Brown.
Oh, and for Tom.
The EBUG.
The EBUG, Tom Hodges. Oh my God. I had to turn off the Ben Stelter content because I was just like, no, I'm not going down this hole. I'm not going to start totally bawling my eyes out all day and being sad and depressed. Even though it's not depressing, it's super incredible and uplifting, but like it's also sad. So let's fill everybody in on this sad thing. But we're not going to cry. Okay, well, let's go with Ben Stelter. So he is the young boy who is an Edmonton Oilers fan. And a couple weeks ago, the team had him, as like their guest of honor and, had him at the game. They took him into the locker room. He's become BFFs with Connor McDavid. And they even had him come out to, most recently, a morning skate with the boys. And that had me sobbing. And then he was presented a upper deck baseball card, or not baseball card. I call them baseball cards, trading cards with his picture and Connor's picture on it. It just warms the heart, and he's become their kind of good luck charm. So yeah. That's exciting to see. That kid just makes me want to keep crying. The EBUG story, which is the best story I think of the week. You probably disagree, but the Anaheim Ducks were in Dallas for the last game of the season for the Stars. And as you know, or if you don't know, there's an emergency backup goalie always on staff in each city. So it's a Dallas-based guy. He's prepared to either play for Dallas or the visiting team. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point of this emergency backup goalie situation. So he got the call, I think in the third period. He had to go dress for Anaheim. His name is Tom Hodges. He had to run out to his car, like literally run out to his car. His whole 5-minute post-game interview is incredible. He ran out to his car, which he said helped him warm up to get into the game, to go get his gear. He ran into the locker room, went on the ice for Anaheim for the third period. only let one goal in, but stopped 2 shots. But the big story here is not that just an EBUG got to play in a professional hockey game. It's that Tom became blind in his left eye. He's a partially blind goalie. It's not funny. He had an injury from a puck to the head, he said, at like 12, which caused him to lose sight in his left eye. So he could never play, professionally in the NHL. But to that day, he got to make his NHL dreams come true. He's British too. He's from the UK. So shout out to our UK family who listens to the pod. A Brit in Dallas playing for the Ducks who's blind in one eye. What? This league is the best.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
This league is the best. Are you kidding?
It really is. So cool.
What's your opinion on that?
I think it's cool. I mean, I think anytime you see an EBUG dress up and get put on the ice, it's a moment for not only them, but everybody, right? And I think everyone kind of starts rooting for them and you want them to do well. I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome.
I mean, the best part was his pads are Stars pads, like, because he practices with the team, right? Yeah, so he had got green and white pads, but then like an away white Anaheim Ducks jersey. It's just like the perfect picture. So awesome. So awesome. I love this. I love this story. I love this league. He's he sells life insurance. That's his day job. They were like, what's your day job? He's like, I sell life insurance if anybody needs it.
So funny. And speaking of this league just being awesome and sticking to day jobs and whatnot, or not sticking to day jobs, Malcolm Subban sings the national anthem for the Buffalo Sabres. He
against the Hawks, which he played with the Hawks.
Yeah, he did great.
He did phenomenal. Apparently that was his first time ever singing like live in front of a crowd of people. And the boys, like you see all the boys like smiling and chuckling a little bit, like when he hit those really great notes. Because I'm sure they probably heard him sing a bunch in the locker room. Yeah. And all the boys gave mad stick taps afterwards. And like how random that happened. Like, what's all of a sudden these like incredible stories coming out of the league at the end of the regular season?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I hope we see more players sing the national anthem.
Like, has Duchesne ever done it?
No.
Duchesne? Does he go by Duchesne or Duchesne?
Duchesne. He has not done it. He would probably do pretty well, I would assume, too. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That'd be cool. That would be really cool if he could do that.
He'd have to do it with the guitar, like acoustic style, I want from him.
I'll have my people get in touch with his people to make sure that happens just for you.
Great. That happened. And then also, here's why Breezy was crying this week. Dustin Brown announced he will be retiring at the end of the season. He's the plays for the LA Kings. He was the captain, first captain to raise the cup ever. First ever cup raised for the Kings. He was the captain. Kopi is currently the captain and lent him the C for the last game of the regular season, or was it just the day that he announced his retirement?
It was for that last game. Kopi wanted Brownie to be captain for one last game, and it was against the Vancouver Canucks, which Brownie and the Canucks have quite the history together, and the Canucks did something, that he didn't expect, and he kind of goes over that in his press conference. I sent you the press conference.
I watched it. I watched the whole thing.
I was kind of choked up because he's choked up. And whenever you see a hockey player that kind of gets like that, like it kind of hits you. And he had this really cool, was it an analogy or just like a comment, whatever he had said about being a ball of energy. And I don't know if that's just something I personally needed to hear that day, but it really resonated with me. And like, I was like, I gotta send this to Rae, but I know she probably doesn't want to watch this conference because obviously she
is not a Kings fan.
Not a Kings fan. So I like time-stamped it for her. And I was at 39:40 or whatever it is, please just watch this clip. It's like a 40-second clip. That was just like something that I don't know. I keep thinking about it. So and Kathryn does mention something about being a ball of energy later in
Yeah.
this episode. So now I'm just like sitting here like, oh my God, my life is revolving around this ball of energy that Dustin Brown just like made visible for myself. But
So the analogy was like the team is an energy, and are you adding energy to the team, or are you taking energy from the team, that ball of energy? And he's like, I just try to encourage everybody to be adding, and that's what makes a team great and gives us that chemistry and that ability to play well. And he's like, I've definitely had days where I took energy away and I had to learn those hard lessons. So that's that short
yeah,
analogy.
yeah. And so I think that, I mean, this whole situation with Brownie kind of
Mm-hmm.
pumped me up, like lit a fire under me. And I was like, oh my God, the Kings are in playoffs. Like they could do something crazy because they
Mm-hmm.
were, I mean, think back in the 2012, 20, why did I say that so weird? 2012?
2012. We're not that many
No,
years.
we're not.
Uh,
We're not. Why did I say it like that? Please don't think so
2012.
bad. 2012. Um, underdogs, right? Like no one
Yeah.
expected it, and then they came out and did it. Like, could it? And we talked about this a few weeks ago. There's a lot of similarities. Could the Kings potentially can do it again? And maybe that's just me being all hypey and wanting Brownie to do it again. But I'm excited. I feel like
Yeah.
it's sad to see Brown go, much like Getzloff.
Yeah.
Super emotional, but you got to be proud of them and you got to be excited for the future. So um, that got me this week.
Yeah. I did. I ended up watching the whole thing. I had time yesterday, and it was really well done. I mean, one of his sons, had a whole prepared speech about how happy he was that his dad's going to be home with him, and not going to miss games and birthdays and things like that, and that they're going to be fighting over, like Xbox together or something to that degree. And that was sweet. And then his wife is incredible. We need to get her on the podcast.
Yeah.
Was a professional hockey player. And there was like this whole thing about her joke, the running joke in their household being that she had more championships than Dustin did until
Yeah.
he won the Stanley Cup twice. But that was incredible to see. Our girl Carlin asked an incredible question. Carlin Baith, I could hear her voice in the audience in the presser, and
Yeah.
she actually got a really great reaction out of Dustin for it. But just an incredible ceremony. You could just see the emotions and how, you know, hard it is to announce this before it's happened, which is what he had kind of said. And I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing that, like, he's announcing this, but the season technically isn't over for them because they're in the playoffs.
Right.
But he felt it was the right time and thing to do. And God, is that guy a team player
Yeah.
mentality? You can see why he was captain for the years
Mm-hmm.
that he was, and just the way he talks about the game and his play and the team. And you can just see he's one of the good ones.
Yeah. And I mean, just the way he reacted with his family too. I mean, you can tell how much his wife Nicole means to him. And I think just watching, again, personality, just watching them, kind of, he kept looking over at her to like for her support, and she was doing the same thing for him. So I think all of it just kind of, it was really well done. If you're not a Kings fan, I do recommend watching it. I just think that it overall was just really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. I think it's something everyone should watch because I don't remember seeing a press conference quite
No.
similar to what they had done. And just this whole Kopi giving the C for that one last run. Oh my God, that is just, I need that
Oh,
like picture just like framed on my wall. That's just so cool. So
100%. You
I
love
gotta
to see
I
it.
gotta stop.
Breezy's gonna start crying now. For once, it's not Ray. I
Uh,
think it's these things that we love so much about this sport, right? Like, we see these gestures that mean so much to players and or fans in whatever story you want to pick from this week, of just the appreciation and genuine joy and giving nature that these guys have. You know, Kobe didn't have to do that. Like,
No.
you know, he didn't have to do any of that, you know, and you don't, the players don't have to spend time with, you know, Ben Stelter, the kid in Edmonton. You know, they don't have to do any of that. They can do the one thing and be done, but they just find these, they have these genuine connections because they're really genuine guys, and want to give and give back. And I think that speaks to everything we talk about with Kathryn coming up in the interview of, and what we talk about here all the time on this podcast, is that team first mentality and working together, and it really being a community. And it's something you love to see. And these are the moments you get to see it, and makes me love this sport that much deeper, you know?
Amen to that.
Speaking of more reasons for you to be excited, though, you have all three of your teams are in the fucking playoffs, Breezy.
Yeah, they are.
And all of Rachel's one team is not anywhere near the playoffs this year.
It's not. So who are you going to go for? Probably none of my teams, so that's okay.
None of your teams. How could I ever possibly do that? I could not cheer for any of your teams. I'm sorry, but I don't think any three of your teams is going to make it to the Stanley Cup final.
That is okay.
And I'm not saying that to be spiteful because I'm bitter. So everybody get that out of your head. No. It's just like my genuine thought.
And I'm not taking it that way. I'm taking it because we do have a rivalry. And it's very, it comes down to the point. I have the bracket. I told you to pull up a bracket.
Yeah, I'll pull it. I kind of have the bracket, sort of.
It's fine. I'll pull it up. But when you are doing a bracket, it's so hard to choose something over your feelings and emotions or like a logical thing, because playoff hockey is so crazy. It's so different, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes things surprise you. And so we're going to make our round one predictions, right? We're going to do round one predictions. I'm going to go off of what my heart is telling me.
I'm going off of my instincts.
Okay.
And what I read before we started, I read a whole preview, a whole article of like pros and cons for all the players. So I don't want to waste a bunch of time going into why we think it. Do we care? No. Do people care why we think it? No.
I don't think so.
I don't think they care about our opinions anyway. But anyway, let's start on the left, which is the West.
Yeah.
Okay, the West, which is weird. It should be the other way around. Who made this graphic? The East, West, like you read, right? Whatever. Calgary, Dallas. I'm picking Calgary.
I got Calgary.
Kings, Oilers.
This one's tough. This one's real tough. I feel like they both have so much support and good luck charms at this point, but I got to go with the Kings.
I'm picking the Oilers, if you can even believe it.
I can't.
But I don't think the Oilers will go past the first round.
Okay.
Preds, Avs.
Preds. I got that.
Unfortunately, as much as I have disdain for them, I do think they are going to, you know what, actually, my heart hopes this is the one time I'm cheering for the Preds right here, that they beat the Avs, they sweep these buffoons in the first round and send all of those critics packing, because I just can't take it anymore about the Avs.
Oh no, I think it's going to go full game 7. Preds will sneak in.
Go Preds. Go Preds.
Go Preds. Can you say that one more time for me?
Nope, that's all you get. What's the like teeth thing you guys do?
I do the yeah.
I like this upside down rock and roll symbol.
You look like Spider-Man trying to figure out his like, oh my God. Whatever.
Not a Preds fan. Wild Blues. This series I am so flippin' excited to watch. It's going to be one of the most exciting series to watch, I think, in the first round. Yeah, I'm going Wild.
I'm going Wild.
I don't know that the Wild have it to go all the way. The Blues and the Wild are so well matched that this is going to be a fun series. Let's head over to the East. Washington Capitals will be facing the Florida Panthers. I'm taking the Florida Panthers. Ovi is TBD on injury, being able to play. Yeah, I think Florida's going to make it out of the first round.
Yeah, I got Florida.
Lightning versus the Leafs.
Oh, yeah. Not today. This is the year. Leafs are moving on, baby. Let's go.
I cannot.
I'm
going with
it's happening this year.
I'm going with the Lightning. I mean, I would love an upset. I would love to be proven wrong and for the Leafs to make it to the Stanley Cup final this year, but I just don't have the faith based on years of past.
They're moving on. This is the year.
Boston Bruins versus the Carolina Hurricanes.
I'm going Canes.
I'm going Canes as well. Penguins versus the Rangers. This is going to be another interesting series. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to go as easy for either team as one would maybe think.
I think they're pretty well matched, but I'm going to go with the Rangers on this one.
Oof, this is such a tough choice. Like, I really want the Rangers to go far. They've had such an incredible season. Their goaltending is unbelievable. The depth, I don't know. I'm gonna pick the Rangers. Picking the Rangers.
There we go.
Crosby's had an incredible, one of his best seasons this season, despite being out for a little bit at the beginning. I don't know. Funny story for you really quick, and then we will toss it over to Kathryn.
Okay.
There's a lot to talk about, you guys. Full disclosure, I broke my hand on Friday. I don't know the extent of my injuries yet. I am on the IR for the playoffs right now. I will be going to a doctor this week. But I had to take the dogs to the dog park, and there was a guy who came in who kind of looked like Brian Dumoulin. Uh-huh. And I thought he had a Penguins hat on.
Oh no.
And I'm so used to now meeting the Dumoulins around my neighborhood here where I live that I just like so badly wanted it to be Brian Dumoulin with a dog at the dog park, right? Like, they're like, maybe he's here for the weekend because playoffs haven't started, and like that's totally feasible that he could be here. So I was like, is your name Brian? And he's like, no, close, it's Brendan. I'm like, are you a Dumoulin? And he's like, no. I'm like, oh, but your hat. And then I realized it wasn't a penguin. It was a bee for the Bruins. Like, I clearly know the difference, you guys. Like, I know the difference, but I had just so badly wanted it to be Brian Dumoulin in the dog park. And it really, really wasn't. Like, it couldn't have been like not Brian Dumoulin at the dog park.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
I put my foot in my mouth. Like, I have no problem going up to people and being like, are you Brian Dumoulin? But I always end up putting my foot in my mouth in some shape or form. But anyway, that happened. It was not. No.
No. You just asked for his number at that point.
Well, I mean, I was just really hoping it was Brian Dumoulin, and like I could share this incredible story of like running into him at the dog park, and that was not the case. And then he had said like, well, we babysat a dog, so I think he had a girlfriend or boyfriend, who knows? But like, yeah, it was just awkward, and I was like, okay, kids, it's time to go. Bye.
Oh gosh.
Pretend like I never talked to you, sir. Next time I see you at the dog park, I'm just gonna leave that alone.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Let me take my broken hands and get the hell out of here with one-handed trying to wrangle 3 dogs with who are not very well behaved. That was fun, but everything on that front was fine. Just embarrassed myself. What else is new? let's send it over to Kathryn. Enjoy, everybody. This week's episode of the House of Hockey podcast is brought to you by
Hockey fans. The pursuit for the Stanley Cup is on, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer for the most exciting playoffs in sports. Oh, yeah. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during playoffs? With DraftKings same game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's your shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. That's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast, Kathryn.
Thank you. I'm very excited. We finally get to do this.
Yes. Kathryn and I had some time to chat beforehand to just sort of get to know each other and to better understand some questions to ask and what not to overkill, like fun dip and, some other things like that. So to start, we always like to ask you to tell everybody who you are, the short 60-second story of who you are in your role with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Sure thing. So I am a Northern Ontario girl from a town in the middle of nowhere, a town of 200, who finally made her way to the National Hockey League about 7 years ago. I joined the Blue Jackets as the executive director of the foundation and vice president of community development. Was in that role for a few years, helping to connect the community, grow the game, do all kinds of really fun and cool stuff. And then was asked to take on the role of chief marketing officer a little over 3 years ago. So about 3 years in this role, very, very different than what I was doing. Feels like most of the time I have spent managing through COVID. So now I'm going to find out what it's really like to do this job.
Yes. Well, you're doing an incredible job from what I can see through social media, of course, and that kind of thing. But what I think is really interesting is that you didn't come from the sports world. You sort of came from that nonprofit world, and you're also a fan, like you're a fan first. Tell everybody a little bit about your fandom with the Blue Jackets and, how that story plays into now your job as chief marketing officer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm your very typical Canadian, right? We grow up, we love hockey. My siblings all played. I never had the opportunity. So I spent a lot of time in rinks growing up, have a genuine love of junior hockey. The World Juniors is absolutely my favorite hockey every year. I look forward to. And that was really the focus growing up for me. I didn't really spend a lot of time watching the NHL because I was watching my siblings and spending time in rinks. And so I moved to Ohio the first time in 2000. Out of college, I moved here and happened to be the inaugural season of the Blue Jackets. And so when I got here, new team, new place, I was like, all right, I'm going to get into this and give these guys a follow. And right away, fell in love really with the way that this state embraces their sports, but also the way that this community embraced having an NHL team in a small market and seeing that. So coming from where I come from, where it's just what we have beer and hockey. That's it, right?
It is
not quite the same here in central Ohio when I arrived. So my brother would come down from Canada. We loved everything about it. And so even though I moved away in 2007, but took the center ice package with me, followed this team, and had the opportunity to come back to Columbus 8 years ago. And so I came back as a fan. I came back just in time for the first home playoff win against Pittsburgh. was in the stands for that, had been here for a lot of firsts over the years. And so really just the opportunity to come back to this market. And it's part of what drew me to this market too. I was coming back here to work for the YMCA, and the people at YUSA in Chicago had called me. I was living in New York, working on YMCA resident camp. And they called me and said that the Columbus Y needs a chief development officer. You're a Blue Jackets fan. I said, I'm a Blue Jackets fan. I'll consider looking at Columbus. And so really it was part of the interest in coming back here. And it happened to be the very first call when I started here as chief development officer. The very first call I made was to the Blue Jackets to walk down the street and say, you need to grow the game, and I think I can help you do it. And that's where my journey started with them. Shortly thereafter, opportunity opened up. And I said the only thing I would ever leave the YMCA for was the community development job at the Columbus Blue Jackets. And 12 years later, made my way back to this community and got very, very lucky. So I'd say probably the reason I could make that transition, not coming from sports, is just because of the unique qualifications that I did have. So even though I didn't, come through sports per se, us Northern Ontario people think we know everything about hockey anyway. So wasn't I born qualified? No, not really. But we come with that spirit. And then I think, what was needed at the time from a nonprofit experience to running the foundation, I just happened to bring a unique set of qualifications that got me in the door, only to realize I was in fact the only executive without sports experience at that point. So the journey began.
And there it goes. So how do you go about growing the game in Columbus? I know you said that, Columbus is in Ohio in general, is just always rallies around their sports, but what was your approach to growing the game there?
It struck me when I moved here, I'd have conversations with people, especially working with the Y and youth sports, and have conversations. And I remember having lunch early on at my time here. And the gentleman I was talking to, he goes, hockey's it's not like other sports. You can't just play anywhere. You can't just grab a ball. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm pretty sure I play left-handed because that was the only stick available for my siblings. Right. When you played in the driveway with anything you could find, any ball. And so that really struck me when I got here of interesting that the perception is even there, right? That this sport isn't played anywhere at any time by anyone. And so I think, the opportunity to come in, first of all, I'd come in on the other side to say, I can help you grow, stick in hands. Let's get kids, to pick up a hockey stick and have a chance to experience this sport. And that was through partnerships. That's where I started. We started a program called Skills and Drills with the Y. We replicated it with other partners in the community. And that's one step. That whole process for us has evolved so significantly. They've done an amazing job from day one, investing and removing barriers in this community to help gain access. But I think we've gotten better and better at it. And now the approach is one of absolutely every way we can reach and access and remove barriers to that opportunity. So now it's everything from, we have the Learn to Play programs, great program through the league, provides equipment. That's great, but ice is a barrier. We need more ice in our community. So how can we build street hockey facilities? But you can't just build them and expect people to come. So you have to provide those skills and drills opportunity, hold the stick, teach them, provide clinics. And we went from, we have a program called Get Out and Learn, GOAL. And we were doing that on ice, right? Just short clinics, just come out, try it for free, see what you think. Now we do that. We will do it all summer long for street hockey programs and opportunities. And so, programs through the schools, we have Power Play Challenge where we're working with kids in the schools, introducing them to our sport, getting them on field trips out to rinks. But all those things happen. And I think the key to progress there becomes understanding the pathway from there. And that's a challenge. As a parent to go in, I put my daughter through Learn to Play several years ago. And then, you're like, okay, now what am I supposed to do? And where do I go? And what if my kid they really like playing? I'm not a great skater, okay? I don't think my daughter is either. So I'm pretty sure she wasn't meant to play on ice either, but we are very mean street hockey, ball hockey people. All right. We got time for that in this house. So, what's her pathway and what could she do? And so we're spending a lot of time right now trying to figure out how to better communicate, better coordinate, time the programs, start here, try this, go here. It's a big part of what we do. And listen, this is a market that, we haven't really experienced winning the way we want to, and the way I truly believe we will in this market. But all these things we're doing have to prepare us, because when we win and really win, and everyone else wants to come in and play this great sport, we better be ready. And we're working hard to do that right now.
That's incredible. And I mean, gosh, I feel like growing the sport with kids too, it makes things more fun to watch. I mean, that might be something crazy to say. I know we just talked about crazy things, but like, I always just think about when you watch kids do something and grow, and you see that, like, we've already discussed how hockey makes it makes better people. I think that's just the better way to do it. So how has been the feedback that you've been getting from like parents and whatnot, when their kids may not have been interested in hockey prior, but now they are, and there's so many good programs that you've made available for them? I mean, what's the feedback?
Listen, we celebrate every single one of those stories and every one of those wins, right? Because a lot of times people don't see the opportunity or see themselves until they see someone like, look like them and sound like them and their age and all those things. And we know if we're going to be better in this sport and being more diverse and getting more people to come and play the sport, that we need to start young. It's just the reality, right? However, and then we focus a lot on that because we know we can grow young hockey fans who are going to come out, grow up, support the team. And that's important. But the other side of that becomes, well, what if, at our age, we want to go out and learn the sport? What about that opportunity? And so I think that's another piece as we get better. I talked to a gal recently, an influencer in our market, Jess Brohard. You may follow her on social. She's a big part of the gaming community, but she recently went out and got equipment, and she's in the adult learn to play league at our ranks. And I reached out to her and I'm like, that is amazing. How can we follow and talk about doing that? I'm afraid that I'd fall and hurt myself and not recover.
Right? That's Breezy and I. Yes. That's why we don't play.
Right. But it's funny when you talk to the kids and they'll learn to play program, and, they'll be like, oh, this equipment's amazing. You feel invincible. And I'm like, please tell me that's what it feels like as an adult. Yeah. Trying it. So, but I love this story now to be able to talk to her, and we're hoping to do a little more to tell her story again. So you could see yourself, I can go out and I can do this. And there is an option for me, and an option that, I might be comfortable with. So in every way that we can take any feedback and share it back out, we're gonna shout it from the rooftop, because we do believe we have a great sport that is inclusive, that builds great character, and it's a wonderful, wonderful community.
Now, how does all of that, like the community aspect and reaching out to the kids and the adults who are the fans and maybe might not even be fans of the team or hockey in general, if you're just introducing the game to them, but how do you take that and all that you've got going there and translate that into marketing an NHL team in your market? Like, what does that add to what you do in your day-to-day job?
Well, I think it's one way you consume, right, our product is by the participation. But I think it becomes one piece of the pie of all the ways that you're trying to reach out, engage, and grow someone from a casual fan to being a more committed fan. So, if I look at from my seat and my responsibilities, that's a really important strategy and opportunity, but it's only one. If you look at things like even gaming, look at the opportunity. I mean, it's amazing to me if you think about and what was a non-traditional way to consume the sport, but people that are playing who, I mean, they can name more information and statistics than the rest of us just because of the way that they've consumed the sport. And then if you look at it and say, you know what, it's entertainment. We are in the entertainment business. And so what does that look like? And we know from research and things that we do, the importance of escaping your day to day and the opportunity to spend time with family, with friends, with your girlfriends, whatever. And so there's that piece. So all of these things in our world kind of add up to say, okay, here's each of the piece. And at the end of the day, our guiding light for what we do is strengthen the brand, broaden the base. Everything we're doing. And if we're doing something and it doesn't do one of those two things, we probably ought to have a conversation. And so really it's a constant holistic view from this seat of the way that people are engaging and consuming the product.
Let's talk about your superstitions and rituals for game day and all of that fun stuff. What goes into it?
Yeah, well, so for me, that's a personal and a professional conversation. Again, I come as a fan first, but then I also come from a family where we believe and are very committed to our pregame rituals.
And we are too. Both
okay, good.
Breezy, and we've had to work through some of her jinxness that she believed she had. So it's very real. We're on the same page.
It's a lot of responsibility, right?
It is.
It's a lot of responsibility. And for years, as a family, I think, and just a sports fan, I've always enjoyed those things and always, listen, the Tampa series, I can't even tell you, I would change before the game and had to put the shoes back. We were like, we had it down. There was a lot of Fireball consumed, which is really not ideal because I'm supposed to work and watch and you have all these things, right? So that sort of, for me, is like a background of coming into it from a genuine perspective. And then, this year, you mentioned Fun Dip, right? Beginning of the season this year, each year right around opening night, our HR team does a lot of stuff for the staff to keep us going. We're working hard. We're trying to get ready. We have a super fun environment at work. And one of the things they do is deliver everyone's favorite candy. And every year they deliver me Fun Dip. And you can imagine the conversations around the office when you're looking at what everyone's consuming and what's your favorite. And of course, everyone looks at me year after year like, you are a grown woman. And I'm like, I know, but I love Fun Dip. And so this year, because of, again, the reaction to folks, I took to social during preseason to say, listen, I'm having a Fun Dip today. And if we win tonight, I'm going to adopt this as my pregame ritual. It felt more like a confession at the time. Didn't know where this was going, but, so shared that confession. But what was interesting is people thought that was a pretty cool idea, and it generated a conversation. And so as Fun Dip was picked up by our fan base and adopted by many, it struck me in this sort of idea of the way I used to look at superstition, just, as fun and interesting to really kind of get into it and appreciate the fact that every time someone's doing something, every time you're putting on your lucky socks or having your Fun Dip, you're taking an action, a positive action in a positive spirit in that moment to do something to support your favorite team. And I believe there's a lot of power in that. And I had read during COVID, I needed to pick me up at some point during the pandemic. And so I had read The Energy Bus by John Gordon and really had been contemplating this idea of positivity and the importance of what we do. And so as Fun Dip and the conversation evolved and people connected and our fans started bringing it and sharing it and taking it on the road to Vegas and finding each other, it was just really amazing. At the end of the day, we all know it's not about winning or losing because you had your Fun Dip. It's that ability to be part of something. And that's what's so great about sports, right? It brings people together and you get to be part of something. And so it took on quite a journey. And eventually the Ferrara Candy Company wondered why the
sales went up.
Yeah, the Iconics candy brands had now moved up on the charts. And so they came out, provided thousands of packets of Fun Dip to our fans. And it's just been something fun. But I think it's been a really important lesson of what opportunity we have to connect people through our work and through the sport and appreciate why everyone should have their own pregame ritual.
Yes. And maybe not confess it on the internet because then you're going to end up having this whole thing. But at the same time, that's absolutely incredible that it's, not only are you a fan, but you're in this chief marketing officer position too, where I'm sure when you tweeted that, you really didn't think anything was going to happen or that it was going to have this impact on the fans. But it's just incredible that just something that small, and I really do believe that it only that this moment that you're describing happens in hockey. Like, I just feel like there's something unique about it, and some kind of connection that we all have just from a single fan, you, Kathryn, doing this and it just taking fire. I think it speaks volumes to the work you do and how connected you are to your community of fans, and then also just the game. But that wasn't really a question. That was just a comment. But...
Yeah, well, and at the time, honestly, it was embarrassing. I mean, I don't, right? Because I'm like, Kathryn the fan did this, right? And then, but I wear this other hat that I have to be mindful of. And you're sort of like, and so all of a sudden this is happening and I'm thinking, okay, this wasn't part of the strategy. And, but they never are, right? Those organic things aren't. So, you ride this fine line. And I went to our VP of content and I was like, listen, I need you to help work with me on this, because I need someone besides me really to put the business lens on here to figure out what's appropriate. And I really wondered at some point, our president was going to come down, and he finally said to me one day, he goes, so this fund thing. And I was like, ooh, like, yes,
oh no.
I was like waiting for it. And he's like, people are having fun. He's like, and if they would associate one word with the Columbus Blue Jacket, and that word is fun, he's like, you got something there. So anyway, okay, because I was like very clear. I never used any team resources up until this point,
right,
to do this or talk about it. And that's the amazing thing, right? And the groups that did, and they made it something I didn't. Right? People chose to make it something, and then you just kind of get out there and nurture it. And now you have a canon meetup of Fun Dip, and and the people are happy, and they are having fun. So it ended up being a pretty cool part of the season.
Isn't it funny how there's like a mutual respect within like every single like hockey community that like whatever your pregame ritual is or your superstition is, like people respect it. They're just like, that's totally fine. Like if you want a beer at like 9 a.m. because your team's playing, it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like that's your thing.
That's respect for commitment right there. Right? Like that 100%. You're like, I got you. And by the way, you do whatever you need to.
Yeah. Right. We need that W.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about the fifth line. That is what the fans have lovingly been called in Columbus. I don't know where or how that started, probably with a fan.
Exactly.
Right?
Same way Fun Dip started. Yep. Took to social. Some key folks who, by the way, have participated in the Fun Dip squad, as we call ourselves. Same thing, right? What a great, cool concept, a reaction years ago to you got your fourth line on the ice and your fifth line is out here in the stands. And it just took off like wildfire. And I think it's a really important part of being a Blue Jackets fan at this point. And I just think it's so cool and kind of amazing that, it started here first. No one thought of that.
Right? That it took this long too for that to come up and make it a thing. But it speaks to the different fan bases, right, of each team, which has such a distinct personality, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a fan in New York with the Rangers who calls himself or the fans the fifth line, right? But it just didn't catch on, and it just happened to take place in Columbus. But what are those fans like?
What are some of the things that make our fan base and market unique, right?
Yeah.
In the way that, and I think some of it is understanding the journey of this team, right? It took a long time. Expansion looks a little different these days than it did back in 2000. It's taken a long time to experience some winning and some consistent winning and sort of the changes have gone through that. So this fan base has been here through thick and thin. I was amazed. I told you that's what attracted me to the fan base in the first place, is their passion and fun, and they got behind the team. And, if I went to a Canadian market and some of the things that were happening in the early years, they probably would have booed them off, right? Not this market, right? We're there, we're going to lift you up. And so you're sort of seeing that energy, but that passion and commitment, and to be on a tough journey to follow a team, one of the things that I've learned in this role and looking around at other sports teams is, you look at the Atlanta Braves, right? Even if your team hasn't won in a while, you can remember what it was like.
Right.
You can picture that. You can feel that. We don't have that. Now, I can tell you that first win against Pittsburgh, right, in the playoffs. I can absolutely tell you now how hard I cried when we swept Tampa.
Yes.
But those pieces and those moments. And so if you think about the commitment of this fan base, and our team has had to work hard, right? A non-traditional market that's had to work very hard. That means we have to entertain our fans. We're used to that. You have teams right now that are experiencing a drop in ticket sales and other things. And for the first time are having to go do things that we've always had to do. We've always had to do that. But that is part of who we are. And that's part of the fans showing up all the time. And I've said this to players in some of what we've referred to as the creed for our team. The players have to show up after the win or the loss, and so do the fans. So do the fans. And I think that's what you see in our fan base, and that pride. And so there's something to be said. They feel like they have been on this journey, and they're part of the reason when we do see success. So I think you have that piece. And then I think you have just the general connection to the Civil War theme that you see. I mean, our players give out a kepi, after the game, and that's just cool and always fun to see what the players have to say. The cannon, there's those pieces that you begin to own with a view of being that army, right? And being that force behind your team to get up and support. And so I think it's just a really cool way it's come together. But I give this fan base props for the passion, but you'll see the very same thing come back from our players. And that's cool. They know, they appreciate it. They get it. They will tell you when you come and, from another team and you play in the Columbus Blue Jackets, those guys will tell you this is a hard building to play in. It's a hard building. And by the way, because of where we come from and who we are and what it means to be a Blue Jacket, I mean, we saw it the other night against our last home game against Tampa, right? We don't quit. We don't quit. And no matter who you are, where you think the Blue Jackets are in playoff contention or not, do not underestimate the Columbus Blue Jackets. And people know that because that's who we are. But we're fighters, relentless, because we've had to be, we will be, and that's the reason we will win.
Don't mess with the Blue Jackets.
Don't you do that.
I will.
You need to have that speech on the
Kathryn.
Jumbotron for opening night.
Yes. That clip right here, we're going to send it to your head of video content and make them put this in. But I love it. I love that pride.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part of, doing my job. You talk about that connection as a fan and a CMO. I mean it.
Oh, yeah.
And, so that part of it makes it fun, but it also is the scariest thing in the world. And I think I said that when we talked previously, right? It's, I am responsible for one of my very favorite things, right? This brand, it means a lot to me. That's very scary because I do not want to F that up. I do not, right? But that's probably healthy because that's the guiding star too of, all right, decision-making and considerations and having a really great team, that I work with every day so that we can hopefully make good decisions and get us where we want to go.
And it's cool because, your dream job, right? You're doing what your passion is, but also to be that fan. And you just said you don't want to F up because it's something that you are so passionate about. When you wake up every morning and you're going to your job, I feel like I'm just you have music playing, blasting out your windows, you're going and you're just so excited. But there's also the flip side of it where there are struggles. And have you faced any challenges that you've been able to turn into like positive aspects from having your role and having to balance both fan but being professional, and still like move forward and know that you have an important job to do.
Yeah, I think where that sort of struck me first, coming into working for the team, was, the end of every season, right? A playoff run or otherwise, in dealing with fan disappointment, right? That's tough. And what I always wanted to say to fans who will come out and a lot of time, you're emotional, there's a lot going on there and people are saying things. And all I'm thinking to myself is, imagine what it's like for us, because we're going to get up and go to work today. Like, right. You're having sort of that moment. And then I'm like, wow, like, but we got to go. And, it's our job to figure this out and keep going. And so that piece, I think, was probably the biggest thing coming in, and I had to learn, but then also be like, okay, all right. So if I am feeling this way, right, what do I want? And knowing that people still want to be part of something and still want to connect, what are the opportunities that we have? And I think the way that we've built out our new brand platform, it allows us to be fluid and flexible. So when we need to pull different levers, we can. When product on the ice may not be good or something else might be happening, we can focus on other things. We do amazing work in the community. Our players do amazing things in the community. And so there's other levers that we can pull and be ready to do to help people have pride for the team. We've spent a lot of time this season. I mean, obviously we were not expected to do very well. I think we exceeded those expectations, but I think what's interesting is our fan sentiment right now. But I think one, it's trying to manage those expectations, and celebrate what's appropriate. But then also, our job then in that moment, when you talk about pulling levers, is to build confidence, is to try to give them an inside look, an understanding of the steps that we're trying to make to be better, to grow, and to share. And so our behind the battle episodes of behind the scenes content for us, I think we're just really starting to get good at that. But what an opportunity that is, for us to be able to tell that story and connect. And I think fans are on that journey with us right now. But it's a good reminder each time is, all of those things are important. All of those things are important, and you can't overlook any of them, and you sure don't want to miss an opportunity with them.
No. Tell us about the players. You've mentioned them a couple times, and how you talked to them and shared that sort of sentiment that you did earlier on how you communicate with them and give them different perspectives to think about the game and the fans. But do you have any fun, interesting, silly, empowering, whatever player stories that you feel you can share without,
yeah, I mean,
ruining the confidence with the players?
I don't have another frame of reference, right? I never worked in sport, and I never worked in another sport. I am absolutely amazed at how amazing hockey players are to work with. And I don't think that's just our team. I think that's in general. And I've caught myself saying before, I'm not sure I could work with other athletes after working with hockey players. And maybe it's the nature, I've often wondered about that. Why is it different? But maybe it's the nature of the system they grew up in, building and staying with families. And does that sort of play into it? But you have that piece of it. And then you have, the expectations when you come up and be a Blue Jacket. I say that it's really, really important to us. This is who we are. And this is what it means to be a Blue Jacket. And when players come in, that's a big part of it. And so, Nick Foligno, and I think you spent time with Janelle. So Nick and Janelle, right? I mean, what a great captain, followed by another great captain in Boone. But, being able to work with Nick and Janelle, I'd say one of my favorite things in my time with the team, and especially because it was early on when he was named captain, they wanted to donate $1 million, $500,000 to Boston Children's Hospital and $500,000 to Nationwide Children's Hospital. And as a former development officer, that process to me, I'm passionate about. And when someone's going to invest at that level. And so I went through that process with them. We set up dinner with doctors to have them be able to listen and understand the opportunities they had and what areas, and to really choose. Like, I wanted them to know, you don't just give it over. Like, at that level, you can actively make decisions. And so, took them through that process, and a gift agreement, as a player, to give that much. And why? Well, if you're going to give that, there should be an expectation. But I wanted so badly to make sure that Nick and Janelle had the experience, because he was a leader in the locker room. Mm-hmm. And now all of those guys around him in the locker room had someone, because modeling that behavior, I think, is really, really important. So I think, and had a chance to go to Boston for Nick's 1,000th game ceremony, and got to see Nick and Janelle after, and just really, really great people. So I think that's an example of sort of the deep side of making connections with them and having an opportunity to do good. I would say, an example on the lighter side is probably we have a golf classic every fall at Double Eagle here. And we have an opportunity for the foursomes to draft a player. And so you can pay a little extra at lunch, and we'll give you their handicaps. And those that really want to win this tournament will pick the very best. There's some really great golfers on our team, and sort of going through it. And then there's me. So I love to play golf, okay? But I am not very good. I feel like I've really grown up a lot, because I can say that I will do something I'm not very good at, but that's because I like to play golf a certain way. And so here I am, it's important to participate, and I'm at lunch and they're drafting and they're getting down there, and it's trying to keep things going. So I end up getting the last pick. So I pay a little extra money so that, I'm going to get first dibs with my foursome to play. And so the only person, I hope he doesn't listen, he'll laugh. So Gavrikov. So Gabby is on the list. He's the only guy whose handicap says NA. Okay. So when it's NA, it's not good. Right. So we're going through, and if you don't draft a player, you just get assigned someone. Right. So about half of them are drafted. So we're going through it all, and I'm in the room. Players aren't in the room at a time. And it gets to me and my foursome, and I pick Gabby. Like, my boss looks at me like, what are you thinking? And I looked at him and I said, because he's going to play golf the way I like it. Now, if you follow us at all, he's just an amazing, humorous, funny guy. And the opportunity to play golf with him was just incredible. And so we got up to the tee box, and actually Scott Harrington ended up playing with us as well. And we got up there, and I walked up to them, and I was like, I go, now look, I handpicked you guys. And they have this look on their face. And I'm like, now let me tell you how I play golf. This is a shamble. Don't know what that means. Not really concerned about it. We will not keep score. We're going to play whatever ball we want. I do not play it at the center. I went through it. And like, Scott Harrington looked at me. He goes, oh, thank God. Gavrikov had not golfed a lot. And so there would have been a great meme if I got his first tee shot. Now, like any good athlete, got better through it. But I happened to see him the other day for the team photo. And he's like, are we getting the team back together again? He goes, you're going to make sure. He goes, people, right? He's like, that was the best. I'm telling you, probably the best and most fun I've ever had on a golf course. But if you follow along at all and see, he's a character. And those are the fun side things of, what we get to do, right? You're raising money for charity, but you're just getting to be real people. And so those are special instances. That and my daughter trying to teach Dalton Prout how to bowl. I think she was 6 or 7, and I have video of her giving him pointers. Very seriously giving him pointers. So God bless him. He knelt down and heard every word. And she's like, now look, if you're gonna, we were bowling with our pediatric cancer heroes that year. So
she got it from her mama, apparently.
I feel sorry for her. She is just like me. So, every opportunity you get to do things like that and see their outside of hockey self and connect, but they're great human beings. And I'm constantly impressed by how lucky we are to work in a sport where people can be so connected to each other.
What's your opinion? Because Breezy and I talk about this a lot here and with our guests of what you just talked about, the players' personality off the ice, their real life personality. And being able to share that with the fans in a way that still honors that team first mentality that hockey has. What does that look like to you? Because I think more and more today that fans want to know those things. Like, we want to see a little bit more. We want to feel like we know them a little bit better because of things like social media and there's a little bit missing. Or is it better to keep that mystery where we don't totally know everything about that person?
Well,
like,
I think
I don't know, how do you manage that?
That's part of our job, right? And I think the gatekeeper in that in general is this on brand for our team? This is who we are. And if we share this content, I think that's a general piece. I think, for the most part, we have no choice because of the way content consumption. And again, there's people that could care less about the, hockey puck and hockey stick, but they care what Line A is walking in wearing today.
Right.
I mean, that's very real stuff. And just, again, I think that's the evolution of where we're going. And one of the things I think that's been a little bit more challenging for hockey in general is because the emphasis of being team sport, team. You don't call out one guy. You don't do those things. And when you start to get someone who likes that and might want a presence, but not everyone does, that's a balancing act. And I think we're still trying to find our way. I think, right now you've got some guys that love it. I mean, we've got guys that might say, hey, I'm coming in today. When you take pictures, can you send me some? And I'll put them out on my social channels. Absolutely. And then you have other guys that might be like, hey, can, not today. And so that sort of communication and trust with the hockey operations side of the business, that when we're telling a story and communicating, it's in line with, the message they're trying to deliver. And that's where social media can be a little bit harder, right? Because you might be having a conversation with a player or managing something, but you might be lighthearted on social. I mean, social media gives you, that's the one that's the hardest for me, right? I'm pretty like, it's straight. Is it on brand or not? But then you've got a little bit of play that happens based on trends and certain things that are happening there. And so I think it's a constant gut check. I think it's why it's so important for us and the internal team to really understand that brand platform and who we are and who we aren't. So you have that moment to say, listen, we are not the Carolina Hurricanes. That is not the Columbus Blue Jackets, right? And so, but those are important, and everyone's gotten an identity, but you have to be able to articulate it and hold yourself accountable to it. So having that, I think, helps navigate those conversations, but we're going to have to figure it out. Because hockey will also fall behind, I think, too, if we don't. So, communication, trust, active dialogue to figure out and try to help. And, my wish for being better next year for us is getting ahead. My team's working on some documents right now to take to hockey apps to try to proactively communicate, here's where we're going, here's how we think we can support building confidence. So that they understand that what we're doing is intentional, and here's how, we all collaborate on this and make sure it makes sense for all that we're doing. But it's definitely a challenge, and that's the killer about social media anyway, right? Because I could just be on all the time, and then sometimes you see something, you're like, I mean, like, shouldn't we? Judgment. We're paid. I am paid 100% for judgment. And we don't always get it right.
Yeah. But I mean, I think what you're saying is so important, and you're right on, just from a straight up fan perspective, is like, we want more, but I also don't want it to be a free for all of like really letting the players share everything and anything, because we've seen how that can take a turn, like when an ex-wife of a certain player feels like she needs to say what she needs to say, like those kinds of things. First of all, nobody wants that to begin with, right? Like you don't want to deal with that on social media, whether you're a professional athlete or not. But we've seen how it can become and something else and take away from the team and the game and the sport. So I know there's a fine line there. But there's just so many great personalities in hockey too, that it's like, God, I wish we could just like get a little bit more. Like that's why I think Breezy and I love doing this too, is that we get to hear these little nuggets like and we're not even scratching the surface with the stories that we've heard about different players, because obviously they're not going to share everything, but God, it just makes me so excited. But that's where I stand. Breezy, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you were to, let's just say, pass the phone to any Blue Jacket player, who would you trust the most to show personality, but still show like what it's like to be a Blue Jacket and like have that respect level? But like, what player do you think best represents that you would just be like, take the phone, showcase your entire day, tell your jokes?
Instagram takeover.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a tough one. Because I would trust many of them. I think if I were to answer that question from the perspective of who do I think it would be fun for you? I mean, you're not going to get a better representation of the Columbus Blue Jackets than Boone Jenner, right? But I think to give you a more interesting answer, I think the opportunity for someone like Sean Corrali, right? So you've got him, he's a product of our market. He's gone elsewhere. He's come back. So he has just a super interesting perspective. When he came back, actually, I met him the day of the golf tournament. He had just come to the team and we ended up walking in together. So, introduced myself, was immediately amazed at his connection. I mean, he's a connector. He's got great energy, great enthusiasm. I think, shortly thereafter, I went to another golf outing. Like I said, not very good, but like to play. And
Play your way.
It was for a AAA program. And he came up through that program and he was there and he was speaking. I'm like, this guy's been in town for 5 minutes. And we've got an event this week where he will take some time to talk about the growth of hockey in this market, what it's meant for him. And so I think he's just to get a full sense of our market, our city, our program, and now to be a Blue Jacket. And he's super easy to talk to, very charming and likable. And I just think that would be fun. That would be fun. Now we do have, I brought up Gavrikov earlier. We actually have a sponsored content. It's a helpline where fans call in and ask their questions and he answers. And let me tell you, like, there's no prep. What you see is what you get. He'll be like, hey, a little girl calls in and like, I haven't done my homework. What should I do? And now that's good quality content.
What's his answer?
Oh, I couldn't tell you at this point. He's answered so many questions and we release them after the fact on social. So you'll have to check out the Ohio Health Helpline with Vladislav Gavrikov. I'm not sure I would have my daughter call in and ask her for advice, but it's a lot of fun. Great. Another way, I mean, talk about a win-win, right? It's content. We've got a partner on it. It's fun. You get to see players' humor. That's a great example where things work together well for the good of the entertainment for all. So,
right. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. It's funny. Breezy, do you have any more questions or should we get her with the final three?
Let's go for the final three.
Okay, we ask everybody these 3 questions. Man, women, player, non, whatever. So who is your favorite hockey hunk?
So I would say for me, I feel like this makes me feel old. No offense, Lemieux. But Lemieux for me was always, and I had the chance to meet him early on with the Jackets. We went over to Pittsburgh. We traded. They would come to our foundation event. We would go to theirs to try to, learn from each other. And so at the event, I was there with the foundation board chair at the time, and we walked up, and I went over and introduced myself. Like, this was like a moment, right? Again, I'm a fan. These moments, and as we, I thought I was very professional. And then as we walked away, our board chair, she's a good friend, but she's behind me and she's going, "You're losing your shit right now, aren't you? You're losing your shit." And I was like, I thought I kept it together very well. But that was like for me, that was a big deal of someone I grew up and just thought, he was the best.
That's awesome. I don't know what I would do if I had to go up to my favorite, and I don't think I could talk to him, to be honest. So I got to give you a round of applause for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's video.
Go ahead, Breezy. Give her the
that's
next
funny. All right. So who is your favorite hockey lady?
David Clarkson played on our team. Not very much, was injured most of the time. However, we did some charitable work. And I got to know his wife, Brittany. She just was the most down to earth, like one of those people. I was like, I want to be her, I want to be her. You would never know, what she was juggling, and, now they have a lot more kids. I've kept up with them. Apparently after hockey, they had more, God bless them. But she made an impression on me. As there's just sometimes you meet people, you're like, I want to be friends with them, or they, you look at them and their situation, and she was just so lovely and down to earth. I can't say anything. You would have never known, that she was a player's wife. And so I always liked them. And Clarkson has done so much work in the community. And I think, can be overshadowed by some of the playing issues with his injuries. And you didn't ask for this story, but this is a bonus. Talk about another good moment. My first year doing the Cannonball, which is the big fundraiser for the Blue Jackets Foundation, we did a match for that night. It was a $50,000 match. So on top of everything else, we're trying to raise $500,000, and we want to match $50,000 at the event. And so again, my background was fundraising. I know, go in, be prepared. And so you're trying to prep to make sure you're going to be successful. Like, we have to be successful. And so we were doing all this work, and I was driving home the night before the event. My parents had come down from Canada to go to the event, and David Clarkson called me, and I was like, "Hey, you're on speaker with Mom and Dad." And he's so down to earth too. Very, very down to earth. And so he said, "Listen, I know we have the event tomorrow, and I know that you're trying to make sure that, this money is raised." He said, "You've been working so hard, you and your team, and I want you to know, no matter what the number is at the end of the night, I'll make sure I'll cover the difference. I want you to sleep well tonight and know that you've done it."
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's real,
wow.
Right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy we made it without him.
Right.
But, that's a very real gesture that, most people would never know. And so hockey players are good people.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree. And the last question is, do you have a Sidney Crosby story?
I do.
Yes. Some people do, some people don't. And so It's always a crapshoot.
Well, and it's a little weird for me. It's like battle on my shoulders, right? Because, listen, Team Canada, I bleed red and white. I make no apologies for that. And so, he's an important part of that. However, Pittsburgh, on the other hand, as it relates to our team, is a different story. But so when I was working for the foundation and I would do meet and greets after the game, again, single mom, right, working. And so my daughter always came to the weekend games with me, and everyone got to know her. So wherever I went, so if I did a TV interview, they'd sit her up. I mean, amazing radio booth, very cool. I would, bring her along, and she was probably 7 or 8 at the time. So I'm downstairs in the player hallway waiting on one of our players to do a meet and greet. And my daughter's standing at the door, and she's seeing, there's Nick and there's Cam Atkinson, and, and the next thing you know, Sidney Crosby walked by, and she looked at me and she goes, "Who's that?" And I just saw the smirk on Crosby's face. Like, it was so priceless. It was so priceless, right? She's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Honey, it's just Sidney Crosby." She's like, "Oh."
Just, yeah.
So, I wasn't sure I want to die a little inside or be like, "Oh, I love you, kid. I love you, kid." Right.
So good. That's such a good story. I hope he hears this and can one day. We need to just compile all of our stories. Breezy, I need to take an edit and take every single 100 episode guest Sydney stories and just string them all together and send it to him. Maybe he'll come on if we do that.
There you go.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great. That is a great story. Tell everybody where they can follow you on social media. I know you're very active on Twitter, so feel free to shout that out.
Yeah, Kate Dobbs 99. Spend probably more time on Twitter than anything else. Been very active this year, as has my mother and my stepfather, except they don't have social channels, so they send me their videos
and you
for me to post. So I say that it's, my social channel, but really I think it's my mother's, and I'm just her PR person. But that's really the best place to follow me. My other social channels, I'm a little quieter and a little bit more private on, but that's the community that is the place we come together probably the most.
Okay, wait, I just had one more question I thought of.
Okay.
Give us your 30-second, what do the Blue Jackets need to do in the off season to improve for next season? Fan hat.
Fan hat. Well, I think we've got.
If you can, this is probably a hard question for you. I'm sorry.
Well, no, not at all. I mean, we're coming off great momentum, so that's outstanding. I think we've got some RFAs that we need to figure out. I think the line A situation certainly looks positive. That's a big one. I think we're still trying to find our way on, top line center. How does that shake out? We'll see how the draft goes for us. Jarmo Kekalainen is amazing at his job. Mm-hmm. And as we're seeing with, Kent Johnson and Nick Blankberg having a chance to play with us. So I think for us, it's all about continuing to fill in those pieces, right? Where do we need to, pick up the back end? Where do we, need to go from a center perspective? So I think it's an exciting time. I'm so happy that the fans can appreciate it's hard when you're rebuilding, right? Mm-hmm. That's a tough narrative and a tough place to be. But I think there's a lot of optimism and enthusiasm about, these different opportunities that we have coming up. But a couple of those are, those are some big decisions and big things that still need to fall into place and see where we get and who's going to make the team next year. So we've got lots of great talent coming up, but how does that shake out as we get ready? So I'm counting down to opening night. I mean, I started planning meetings last week. I said, wow, this is great, guys. Like, the season hasn't ended, but count down to opening night.
She's lots of work. A new bottle of Fireball in the freezer, waiting for opening night.
Along with the Fun Dip.
Fireball. Well, and so that's my mother. My mother is Fireball and Fun Dip, and it's hilarious. So her end of season video, they don't even ask. They just send me stuff. They're like, "Can you post this for their people?" And so my mother has her Fun Dip. They did a fireside chat, and then I love my mother. Fireside chat with her Fun Dip, and then at the end, my mother shoots Fireball.
It's so funny.
Your mom's awesome.
My mom is awesome.
She's awesome.
My mom is awesome. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us and really give us your honest insights and a look into what it means to work with a team and build them up in the market you're in. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.